It's always important to do a compression test on any new engine that you're working on. So I've got a compression kit here. We're going to use that to test each cylinder to see how much compression there is. Do we need new pistons? Do we need new piston rings? We'll find that out after this compression test. So with this, what we need to do is make sure that we've got enough space to work. So right now I started outdoors, but in the English weather we got rain, so I had to take the motorcycle indoors. What I'm doing right now is I'm taking the spark plugs out. So this is a good sign, an indication of how well your engine is performing before you even do the compression test. You can see a chart in the owner's manual of how the spark plugs look in terms of the tips, so keep a close eye on them. I noticed the one that I had problems with was showing a lot of carbon buildup on the spark plug, which meant it wasn't getting good ignition, so either a fuel or compression issue, which we did find was the case. So I took that apart, took that spark plug out. I also checked the other side, and that one looked a little bit better, a lot more normal, which kind of tied up with the results. So when you're doing a compression test, make sure you pick up the compression kit. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. There's a few expensive ones out there, but I managed to get what I needed with this option, which I'll put a link to in the description. Only paid like £20 for it, so it worked out quite nice, which is about $22, $23, something like that. So how you do it is you screw it in. It comes with a few adapters, different sizes for your motorcycle or even a car engine, and then you actually attach the dial, the compression dial on the top. And then what you do is you start the motorcycle up. Both ignition cables are off, and there's no ignition things in there. So what we're doing here is we're starting it to see what we get. So you'll see where I've had the problem. I was getting just under like 75, so about 60 psi, which is low. These engines should have something in the region of like 170, anything between 150 and 180 is good. So this is struggling here, which I understand now why. So that makes me think there's an issue here. We'll do a bit of testing to find out what could be the issue for the low compression. So keep watching. I'll give you more tips along the way of what I found. Thanks to the Facebook friends, which actually gave me some tips to find this out. So it's always appreciated. Again, if you have some ideas, do drop them in the comments. It's always great to keep the information coming because we're always learning as we go through this. So I'm going over to the right hand side, and I'm going to check the other side. I'm hoping this side is better because when it rides, I can hear this cylinder working fully. So it's one cylinder at the moment, but that side is better. So we'll find that out when we do this again. So basically try and start it up and we'll get the dial coming up. And once the dial stops moving, you stop trying to turn it over. And you'll see on this side, I was getting more like 130 PSI. So like just over 125. So that's a lot better. Not excellent, but at least it's better than what my left side was. So next up, I've got given information to say, put a bit of oil, motor oil. So I use Lamiyube for my motorcycles. And I'm putting a little dribble, not too much. You'll see there's like maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons of oil. I'm using a funnel just to make it go into where the spark plug would be, which will then land on top of the piston. What this does is, if there is options or something wrong with the piston rings or piston, then you should get higher compression, because what the oil does is it covers up the piston and covers any gaps, which then for the meanwhile temporarily gives you a higher reading. So then you can tell, okay, it's the piston or piston rings. This is kind of, you have to keep an eye on it, because if your piston is very low, something majorly wrong. If it's slightly off, you'll see there with the oil, I got 130 psi now. So now I know something needs to be done with the pistons. It's not the valves, because if the fuel went in and it was still a low reading, it was something to do with the valves. So keep that in mind. Now I'm putting it back together to start it up, and I'm going to get rid of all this oil that's built up. So to give it a start up, it's going to smoke like hell because it's going to burn that oil that I put in the chamber. And this now gives us an idea. I've not had a clamp on the exhaust, so it's leaking out of where it shouldn't be leaking out from. But at least with this quick test, we've seen what the system issue is. We've got a few issues now. So the main thing is we're going to take the engine apart. We need to get access to the pistons, and we're going to see what's going on here. So the worst case scenario would be pistons are damaged, piston rings need replacing, or there's something wrong with the chamber where this piston goes up and down. But once we get the pistons out, that will tell us what that. So we'll check that out in the next section. If you're enjoying this series, make sure to subscribe so you actually get notifications directly to your phone each time I load a new episode. I've got loads of videos planned for this bike when we get it back on the road, so it'd be good to have you along on the journey with me. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video right here.